and welcome back. This is the second video in the series that you're going to be watching to prepare to get ready for the Get Clarity Now experience. I'm going to share my screen again so that you can see the slides and you'll see me as well. So let's talk about how you're wired in this one. So here are some interesting facts. First, an EEG machine, which measures your brainwave activity, there's no difference in the brainwave patterns between when you're thinking about something that's real, that actually happened in the past, or something that's imagined. And how we can also say that is that there's no difference in your brainwave activities between something that you're imagining in the future and something that might not happen and something that might happen. So for example, if you're worried or anxious or concerned about something that's happening in the future and you're making it up to be negative or horrible or the worst case scenario, your unconscious mind is going to say, oh, okay, that's going to happen, because your brain doesn't know the difference between real and imaginary, which is why it's really important to focus on good, the positive, the best outcome rather than the worst outcome. Because your brain doesn't know the difference between real and imaginary. And the brain can actually store an estimated 1 million gigabytes of information. That's a lot. I want to just be really clear. That's a lot of information. So while you can't consciously remember it right now, your brain has stored everything that's ever happened to you, everything you've heard, every smell that you've ever smelled, every taste that you've ever tasted. It is stored everything, all of your memories, all of everything that's ever happened to you. By comparison, the most commonly used archive, the internet, is only 4 times bigger and it holds only 4 times more information than your brain, your fabulous, wonderful, amazing brain. That's how powerful you are. And in fact, there was a study done in 1958 by Dr. Pembroke, and he said that he went in, Penfield or Pembroke, oh my goodness, I've forgotten the name. Anyways, there was a doctor and he was doing surgery and he went into somebody's brain, and the patient was awake, and they were able to tap into a part of their brain, and the patient could remember with crystal clarity thoughts, smells, visions, hearing. She could hear the sound of her parents' voice of an event that happened when she was 2 years old. In fact, she remembers looking at the cake that said happy 2 second birthday. She could feel the feel of the way her clothes fit, and the sounds of her parents' voices, and the smells and the taste of the cake. So it was stored in her brain. So just like that patient, your brain has stored everything that's ever happened to you. Okay, that's going to be more meaningful as we start to explain more of the work that we're going to be doing together. So let's talk about your mind and how you're working, how it works. So most of the time, your behavior is controlled by your unconscious mind. So here's what's happening. So pretend this is your mind. This is the mind model. So there's 10% of your mind is conscious. So that's the part of you that's listening to me here. This part of your brain is analytical and communicates with language, words. Then there's below that line, that black line, which is called the critical faculty, is the unconscious mind. Now, you might have heard it referred to as the subconscious mind as well. Subconscious, unconscious, the exact same thing. People in the world of psychology and psychiatry use the term unconscious mind. That's what we use in the training in neurolinguistic programming. So the word unconscious is what I use. Subconscious is the same. Okay. So, but for our purposes, I'm going to be using and talking to you about your unconscious mind. Now, your unconscious mind doesn't speak in language. It is where your emotions are. It is where, and it speaks in symbols, and it doesn't process negatives. So we're going to talk more about that. in the next few slides, I want to talk about this critical faculty thing. What is that? Well, that's the part of you, that's your analytical mind. That's the part of you that cares to distinguish between real and imaginary. Now, remember a few minutes ago, I mentioned that an EEG measuring your brain waves doesn't measure waves differently if you're imagining it having had happened or about to happen, or what was real and what has actually happened. That also applies to when you're talking about a negative experience that happened to you in the past, and you're talking about it as if it happened now. Your unconscious mind and your conscious, they don't understand the difference between what's happening now and what's happening in the past if you talk about it as if it's happening now. It's going to do what we call reinstalling. So one of the things, the negative thing, so if you've had some sort of trauma that happened in your past and you keep talking about it and thinking about it, your unconscious mind goes, oh, you still want that. Okay, let's have that happen. So one of the things that I'm going to do is I'm going to keep you in the present, talking about what is happening now, not what happened in the past. Now, in the first session, I will ask you about those things. And then after you've told me those things, I want you to only be thinking about what's happening in the now and your desired future outlook, because it's really important. Otherwise, you're just going to keep reinstalling the negative things that happened in the past. And that's what we're looking to get rid of right now. So this is something you can start today. So again, your conscious mind is about 10% of your mind, and your unconscious mind is the other 90%. Your conscious mind is analytical, sequential, cognitive, it remembers. It is limited focus, 10%. Remember, it can only focus here and now. This is why a lot of people have a challenge with their focus, because it's only 10%, which is why I want to teach you how to get underneath the critical faculty, the part of you that cares to distinguish between real and imaginary, and use your whole 100% of your mind. That's the magic of this work. We connect you to the full 100% of the resources that are already in you. The conscious mind directs the outcome. It is the director. It knows where it's going. It sets the goal. So you have to work with it. You decide to set the goal. It decides, it controls your thinking. It's active while we're awake and not when we're sleeping. And it's logical and it's very deliberate, process oriented. Now, your unconscious mind, on the other hand, is unlimited and expansive. It's holographic. It is active while you're sleeping and you're dreaming. It's simultaneous. It can remember all events that have ever happened to you as if they were happening now. It can happen. It can pull them all together. It feels. This is where your emotions are. It's responsible for your involuntary movements, your heartbeat, maintaining your breathing, your blood pressure, your eye blinking, all of those involuntary movements that you have that we need to have to keep us alive and functioning and in status quo and balance. It knows the solutions for problems you can't solve consciously. So in the work that we're going to be doing, there's times when you're going to say, I don't know. And I'm going to say, ask your unconscious mind, because it knows. It is connected to all the resources that you need to be successful. It's intuitive and it's imaginative. That's your conscious mind and your unconscious mind. That's the mind model. Now what I want to talk to you about is, this is one of the things that we cover in day 1 or 2 of the NLP training that I do, neuro-linguistic programming. And these are what we call the prime directives of the unconscious mind. So the unconscious mind is responsible for storing all of your memories holographically. It organizes your memories, usually in a sequence of time, or it might group them together in atemporally, meaning that all the times you've ever gone to a wedding, they've all been events. They're going to be grouped together. Or anytime somebody gave you a compliment, they're going to be all grouped together. So it can group them atemporally as like events that have happened, or temporally, as in sequence of time. It represses memories with unresolved negative emotions. So things that happened to you when you were too young to have your neurology be able to go, oh, that's why this is happening, and to be able to rationalize it. And it just pushes it underneath the critical faculty and pushes them so far down and wraps them up in all sorts of boundaries and barriers to protect you. So it represses unresolved negative emotions. So you've heard about this when people have in their 20s, 30s, and 40s, they've had to go into do some work on themselves. And this may be why you're coming to me now, is because you've recently remembered something that happened to you and you've realized that the thing that happened to you when you were a child is now affecting you today. And so, and that's because you're in a place where you can handle it and you have, thank you for choosing me as your solution. You're the person that's going to guide you to reconnect with the resources and remove the negative emotions so that you can be more successful, be happier, be more in flow, be more abundant, whatever your goal is. Then the other thing is that the prime directive of the unconscious mind is that it presents memories for resolution, to make rational and release the negative emotion that's attached. Okay, so that's why we're here. So it's repressing. So your unconscious mind represses them when it doesn't know what to do with them, those negative emotions, because they're too big, they're too much for your neurology, and then it presents them when you're in a place where you can handle them, which is why they come up in their 20s, 30s, and 40s and beyond. It runs the body. So your unconscious mind has a really good solid blueprint of your health, both physically, mentally, spiritually, and emotionally. And it wants to always get you back there. The other thing is that it preserves the body. It maintains the integrity of the body and is a highly moral being. Morality, you were taught and accepted in values. And these often come from when you were a child, from what you learned from your parents, what you either accepted as your parents' model of the world, or you might have rejected your parents' model of the world, one or the other. And that's how you came by your morals, your values, your beliefs. And the last slide we're going to talk about today is the highest prime directive of the unconscious mind is that it preserves the body. And you might hear me say this at some point in our work together. If you're unwilling to allow the negative emotion to let go, I will remind you of this. Not letting go of negative emotions is in direct conflict with the highest prime directive of the unconscious mind, which is to preserve the body. These emotions, though getting results, do not preserve the body. They hurt the body. Wouldn't it be better to let go of the repressed emotions and get results in some other way? And I'm going to be always looking for an out loud yes to an answer like that, a question like this. And the reason I'm looking for an out loud yes is so that your conscious mind and your unconscious mind both hear it and know that it's a congruent decision for you. So it'll always be an out loud yes. So here are some of the things that the negative emotions that we're going to release. Here are some of the potential or possible outcomes that might be for you. Hopefully not, but this is what research has proven that has happened. And this is based on new medicine research by Dr. Gerd Hammer and Dr. Chad James. So anger often leads to heart attack or heightened cholesterol, sadness, a weakened immune system, and depression, fear, excessive stress, post-traumatic stress disorder, and phobias, guilt, lowered healing energy, and conflict is always the key indicator of cancer, some sort of conflict at some point. So we want to make sure that those don't happen for you. And so we want to release the negative emotions so that they're not happening. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Thanks, and I'll see you on the next video.